Okay, so we'll start with Miro's presentation, and then followed by that, I have those previously submitted questions, and our panelists will address those. So go ahead, Miro.
All right, I'll stand up and talk because I can talk better when I'm standing. So my job on this panel is kind of set the stage and talk about why we're here and what we're going to try to do in these 2 hours and kind of the next steps afterwards. And I've got a unique perspective on this because, as Anna said, I'm sorry, I was district commander here about 10 years ago or so for 3 years, and then I went to Afghanistan and saw what a total lack of infrastructure can be. While I was here, I fought some good budget battles on trying to get more money for maintaining our infrastructure. And then since I've been retired, I've had a chance to also take a look at Tulsa's infrastructure from the other side, in that I've been able to work on several of Tulsa's projects. Plus, I'm pretty active in not only SAME but ACDC, so I've been dealing with some of the policy issues that have been involved in trying to do some more innovative things to get money for infrastructure. What I'm going to do is kind of talk about why we're here, and purpose is really to discuss and identify solutions for extending the life of the Corps' aging infrastructure. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to identify the issues, both in our presentations and also in our questions and answers. And we are presenting several case studies on things that have been done. And then we're going to have a moderated discussion, and hopefully with lots of audience participation. Because if it's just us answering honest questions, it's going to be pretty dull and boring. So I hope that we get lots of discussion from all of you in the process. So first off, this is from Steve Stockton, who recently retired as the Director of Civil Works at the Corps. And he talked about the Corps' infrastructure strategy leading to reliable, resilient, and adaptive infrastructure systems enabled by efficiently funded long-term life cycle investment plans. I don't think we're there yet. We definitely weren't there when I was the commander here. And we were dealing with year-to-year budgets and just trying to get our arms around what infrastructure we had. I think we've made some progress in the last 10 years, but we're not quite there yet, so we'll be able to discuss that. The Corps, and we're going to focus on Tulsa because that's where we're at and that's where most of us work, but it's really a Corps-wide problem across all the Corps' districts. And USACE has an enormous portfolio of infrastructure, over $200 billion worth of assets. 1,000 coastal structures, 610 dams. I thought that we had a lot of dams in Tulsa with 38 dams, but 610, that's quite a bit of dams. They provide great benefit. 700 billion in property damages avoided over the last 25 years. 250 locks that basically provide our inland water transportation system. And if those locks weren't there, then you'd have a lot more trucks on our roads, which are already in bad shape. 75 hydroelectric power plants. I think the Corps is the biggest hydropower producer in the country. It's an important and a very important part of our overall energy portfolio in the country, and it's also green, which is good. Ecosystems, 370 million visits to recreation sites in a year to the Corps. I think the Corps exceeds the National Park Service in terms of recreation. But however, most of their projects are over 50 years old. They were designed with a 50-year life cycle. I think Chris will talk about how the new system or new standards are looking now at a 100-year life cycle. But when they were designed for about a 50-year life cycle. And their person needs to recapitalize, repurpose, or divest. And I know there's one project here in Tulsa that I was intimately aware of, Optima Lake in Panhandle, which never met its purpose. Has never met its purpose because it was designed and conceived when the hydrology in the area was much different. But it's too expensive to divest, so they maintain it. This is from General Bostic, one of his papers that he wrote, presentations that he gave, talking about developing reliable methods for assessing the current value of the infrastructure, emphasizing interdependence in the relationships of the Corps' assets within a watershed, looking at kind of a watershed approach, evaluating those assets in terms of the value that they provide to the nation. So most people don't think about the Corps' infrastructure. It's just there, and they think it's there and it's being maintained. Most people don't ever think about it, but they think about it when there's a new project, but they don't think about maintaining what they have. And so it's important that the story gets out there about the value of this infrastructure and the need to maintain it and update it. Systematically evaluate infrastructure based on current performance in meeting the original authorized purposes and how the demands have changed over time. I know one of the things that we did here in Tulsa when I was here was do several reallocation studies of the storage in reservoirs from hydropower to water supply or from other purposes to water supply. And things change over time, and some things become more valuable, some things become less valuable, and it's important that we continue to operate the projects to meet the most important purposes. The big one is seeking alternative and innovative funding, and you hear a lot about P3 and public-private partnerships and getting private investments in these systems. Well, that sounds great, especially if you're in the government side and you think you're going to get free money to maintain your system, but no one's going to invest in it unless they're getting something for it. And so I think that's the big challenge that the Corps is facing right now. And in my work with the ACEC committee, we've talked a lot about public-private partnerships. And the challenge as always is how do you give an investor something, what's the return on investment to the investor who's going to invest in your infrastructure? And how much control are you willing to give up on that? So, let's see. Taking it from the Corps down to Tulsa. Tulsa, I think, has the largest number of projects of any district in the Corps, 38 projects, including 8 hydroelectric plants, 150 miles of navigation with 5 locks, and I think Tulsa is the biggest water supply provider in the Corps. 18 lakes and provides water to 2.2 million people. I took a look at funding, and it's hard digging some of this stuff out, but looking at the Corps' Tulsa District's O&M funding, going back to when I was a district commander, it was about $77 million in 2005, which is $95 million in 2016 dollars. So funding has stayed about with inflation, maybe a little bit even better than inflation, but you got to think that this infrastructure is 50 years plus old. So just as if you have an old car or an old house, it costs a lot more to maintain it than it does a new house. So they're having to repurpose and do major renovations and major upgrades with funding that is pretty well just meeting their day-to-day needs. And this is something I got from a previous district commander's briefing. In terms of what the district is looking at to maintain their infrastructure. Some of the challenges they have with sedimentation. Basically, the Arkansas River system is very heavily sediment laden. So there's a lot of sediment that happens with it. And, you know, as I mentioned before, what are the best uses of the storage? Is it flood control, hydropower, water supply, navigation, recreation? These, the authorized purposes of the project are set by Congress. And any change to that has to be approved by Congress. But that's something that has to be considered also. So with that, that's kind of my precursor of what we're going to be doing here and talking about. And I think we'll probably hold questions for later and let the next person talk.
All right, thank you, Miro. And in 9 minutes and 42 seconds, that's as good as the Army can do. He had 10 minutes and he aced it. So, does anybody remember how big is the total asset portfolio for core?
200 billion.
What was the answer?
200 billion.
Yes. And what's the water supply by the Tulsa district? How many people are served by Tulsa district for water supply?
2.2 million.
2.2. Good. You're paying attention.